When you hear the name Canva, what comes to mind? Probably that super easy tool for making a quick social post, right? Or maybe a presentation. But here's the thing. It is so much more than that. We're talking about a $26 billion global giant that has totally changed the game in the world of design. So let's pull back the curtain and really dig into how they pulled it off.
And it really all boils down to one huge question, right? How on earth did a small startup from Australia manage to build a platform that's now used by over 220 million people all over the globe? This isn't just about software, you guys. It's a story about a mission that it's spread like wildfire.
Okay, so where does that story begin? It starts with a really simple but incredibly powerful idea, making design something for everyone. This was the core problem, the big challenge Canva decided to tackle right from the very beginning.
So what is Canva, really? Well, at its heart, it's a graphic design platform that launched way back in 2013. And its secret sauce? That super simple drag-and-drop interface. It was built from the ground up for people like you and me, people who weren't pro designers, but, still needed to create stuff that looked amazing.
And that was their North Star. Seriously. Every single feature, every decision they made was all about this one goal. You can just forget about complicated software or paying for crazy expensive licenses. The whole mission was to empower anyone, anywhere, to bring their ideas to life visually. It sounds simple, but wow, it turned out to be absolutely revolutionary.
All right, so they had this crystal clear mission. How'd they do in the early days? Well, to put it lightly, their launch wasn't just a spark, it was a full-on explosion. And this is where we start to see the first hints of the unicorn it was about to become. I mean, just look at this timeline. Their growth is it's off the charts. They started in 2013, and in just 1 year, they had over 750,000 users. That kind of initial pickup is almost unheard of. By 2017, they weren't just growing, they were actually profitable with almost 300,000 paying customers. And then, just a year after that, in 2018, they hit that milestone every single startup dreams about.
Yep, they officially became a unicorn company, hitting a valuation of 1 billion Australian dollars. And this wasn't just smoke and mirrors or hype. This was backed by huge investors. We're talking Sequoia Capital, who saw the massive, massive potential in what Canva was doing in that mission to democratize design.
But here's the crazy part. Hitting that unicorn status, that was just the warm-up act. The next phase of Canva's story is one of pure, unadulterated hypergrowth. It was a rocket ship ride that took its valuation into the stratosphere.
The story this chart tells about their valuation is, it's pretty staggering. Look at this. They go from $3.2 billion in 2019, and then they just explode to an unbelievable peak of $40 billion in 2021. That's more than a 10x jump in just 2 years. Now, okay, that number has since come back to earth a bit, settling at a still huge $26 billion. But this chart perfectly captures both that insane growth and, the broader market correction that followed.
So you might be asking, what was fueling that crazy valuation? The answer is simple: mass adoption on a global scale. The user growth is just mind-blowing. From 750,000 in their first year to 75 million active monthly users by 2022, and now, today, over 220 million users. See, this was never just a numbers game on a spreadsheet. It was always about the real people using and loving the product.
But what do you do with that kind of success, right? All that wealth. Well, for the founders, Melanie Perkins and Cliff Obrecht, the answer was pretty clear. They've publicly promised to give away the vast majority of their fortune. And this quote, it just perfectly sums up their whole ethos. It's a 2-step plan. Step 1, build one of the most valuable companies in the world. Step 2, use that power to do the most good we possibly can. Pretty incredible. So, as Canva got bigger and bigger, their strategy had to evolve too. It wasn't enough anymore to just have one really great product. The company started thinking bigger. They started building a creative empire. And they did it by buying up other companies in a series of really smart strategic acquisitions. And if you look at who they bought, you see a really clear pattern emerge. They weren't just randomly buying companies. They were buying specific capabilities. So they bought Pixabay and Pexels, and bam, they've got a massive stock photo library. They brought in Flourish to add powerful data visualization tools. Then, with Serif's Affinity Suite, they suddenly had professional-grade design software. And by grabbing a stake in Leonardo.ai, they dove headfirst into the world of AI image generation.
You see what's happening here? All of these moves, they all point to one crystal clear strategy. This was their playbook for transforming Canva from that one simple tool into a complete all-in-one creative suite. One that could, eventually go toe-to-toe with the biggest names in the industry. And they have been building out this suite aggressively. It really kicked off with adding AI tools, like their Magic Write copywriting assistant back in 2022. Then in 2024, they've gone after the workplace directly with Canva Enterprise, which is built for larger organizations. And they're not stopping. Looking ahead, they've already announced their Visual Suite 2.0 for 2025, which is going to bake AI right into core things like sheets and charts. Of course, no rocket ship ride is perfectly smooth, right? There's always some turbulence. And Canva has definitely faced its share of challenges. Plus, their future plans? Well, they're putting them on a direct collision course with some of the biggest companies on the entire planet.
One of their biggest tests came back in May of 2019. They had a major data breach, and it exposed the data of about 139 million users. We're talking names, emails, and some password information. Now, to their credit, Canva was pretty transparent about it and acted fast. They reset passwords for everyone affected to lock down their accounts. But still, it was a huge test of trust for a company that was growing so quickly.
And this slide really brings us to the breathtaking scale of what they're trying to do now. Just think about this comparison. Canva's past was all about being a simple graphic design tool competing with other design software. Canva's future? It's about becoming a full office software suite, competing directly with Google and Microsoft. Let that sink in for a second. They're not just trying to be a better Photoshop anymore. They are now building a direct competitor to Google Workspace and Microsoft Office. That's a whole different ballgame.
So that all leads us to the big final question, doesn't it? Canva's first act was a massive success. They completely democratized design, putting these powerful creative tools into the hands of hundreds of millions of people. But for their second act, they're aiming even higher. The question isn't really about design anymore. It's about whether this Australian giant can go all the way and fundamentally redefine the future of work itself.